Hello, and welcome to this episode of Transformational Leadership TV, where we inspire, equip, and challenge leaders just like you to do their part to change the world around them. I'm your host, Genesis Eakes, and in this episode, I had the privilege to have a conversation with Trina Ryan, the Regional Vice President for Shaw Industries. Now, we had a chance to catch up and to talk about her experience with the Maxwell Transformation Tables and how this incredible tool is giving her company a competitive advantage. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Well, Trina, it is a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for your time and for being willing to share your story. Now, we got connected a couple of years ago at a conference in Florida, and then I didn't hear, we just kind of went our separate ways, but I loved meeting you, and I thought you were just a very interesting person. And I was so excited when our paths kind of crossed again recently. And you just started telling me a little bit about what you've been up to over the last couple of years. So why don't you, first of all, take a couple of minutes and tell everybody who you are, what your current role is in your organization, and then we'll dive into some questions here.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to. It's so good to be with you today too, Genesis. And so yeah, my name is Trina Ryan, and I work for Shaw Industries. So we are a flooring manufacturer. They're headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia. But I actually reside in Columbus. So I'm a regional vice president for them on the sales side. So I manage the whole sales team for them in multiple states. So in Ohio, Kentucky, parts of West Virginia, Indiana. So I have what's called account managers, and I have several teams in major markets like Louisville, Cleveland, Columbus, and so forth. So I've been in this role for, let's see here, in leadership role, I've been at Shaw almost 12 years, but in this leadership role of a regional vice president almost 8. So it's been an absolute joy, and it's been great. So
that's awesome. I can't believe it's been that long. It's amazing how time just keeps marching on, doesn't it?
There's no doubt about that. So I think it gets faster every day. So
I agree. I feel like ever since COVID happened, it's like the world's been on fast forward. Maybe it's also because I'm getting older. I'm not sure.
Well, I think this summer specifically has gone faster than it ever has. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but it is flying by.
It is. I remember the days when I was a kid and it felt like summer lasted forever. And those days are long gone, right?
Yeah, they're long gone. So
awesome. So when we reconnected a few weeks ago, you started telling me a little bit about what you'd been up to, of course, over the last couple of years. And you were telling me about how you got connected with a tool called a transformation table. It's something that the Maxwell Leadership Foundation offers to organizations and people. And then you started telling me how this was working within your organization. So take us back a little bit and tell me a little bit about how you got connected with transformation tables. And then we can talk a little bit more about what that impact has been.
Yeah, sure. So, when we met in Orlando, so I actually went down there to become a certified coach and speaker for John Maxwell Leadership. And so it was at that moment that I learned of the book that he had recently wrote when I was down there last, Change Your World. So I read that book. He co-authored that, as you know. And so I read that book, and I was just impressed with what that book has to teach about just making a difference in the world, right? If you can make a difference if you can make one person better and you can multiply that, I mean, we can have a major impact on the world around us. And so that just inspired me. And I knew, based out of that book, he had these transformational tables from Change Your World. So I really just had this kind of like desire to really bring this into my role, into my organization. And that was sort of twofold, really for my own team and my own team's personal development. But I also took the liberty and I started engaging our customer base with it. And so that has been interesting and fascinating. And it's been a really neat experience. So I'll share a little bit about that. You want
Yeah,
me
I
to?
was going to say, tell me more about that because that's an interesting dynamic to start sharing it with your. Well, actually, I'm going to actually let's go back for a minute and can you tell people? So you read the book and
Yep.
you got connected with this tool, this transformation tables, and yeah, these tables are personal growth, leadership development concepts, and things like that. So tell me first of all, like what was it that impacted you the most? So you decided that you wanted to do the table, take it with your team. So take us there first, and then we'll talk about
Yeah.
the customer base.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. Let's back up because when I learned of the tables, I actually participated in one.
Okay.
So Christy Kettering's partner, who used to, can't remember, she did a table. So I participated and joined her transformation table. So I was a participant, she led it. So I got to experience that for 6 weeks and learned what it was like to learn those values and actually go and put them to practice in my own life. And I absolutely loved that experience. So I grew from it personally, because we learned on listening and all those critical lot of value skills that I think can be so important in not only your professional life but your personal life, right? To help you be a better wife or a better mom or a better employee. So when I participated in that table, I could see just personally what it did in my own life, but also how it impacted every single person on that call. I think in that transformation table, we probably had about 8 participating.
Mhm.
And so it's just great to see the testimony stories. And week after week, you saw the growth in each and every person. And so it was after me participating in that and witnessing it and getting that experience that I'm like, okay, I really want to bring this to my entire team. And then it branched out to my customers. So I can share that with you here in a moment.
Wow. So do you happen to remember which lesson was the most impactful for you?
Wow.
I know I'm putting you on this spot here a little bit.
I know they really all were. Gosh, I think probably rattle some of them off because there's integrity in listening, valuing people, right?
Yeah, valuing every person,
Yeah.
hope, forgiveness,
Yeah, that was a big one.
application, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I think a lot of times when I learned about the value and put it into practice, there was some of them that I really had more takeaways from a personal aspect, right? So
Mhm.
for instance, I'll give you an example, like listening. So I'm a mom, I have 4 children. And you know how it is. We get off work and we're hustling, busting the kid. We're trying to get dinner. And sometimes I think I realized that I wasn't just stopping and being present with my own children
Mm.
and listening. So when we did that listening lesson for me, I was like, wow, okay. So I really did a lot of intentionality around that lesson that week and practiced it with my children. And
Mm.
so that was it was powerful. And it made me be a better mom, right? Valuing people, that one, it's not that I don't value my team, but there was some pieces in that lesson that really just makes you stop and think like, okay, how do I have intentionality in showing value to my employee or my account manager that's across the table to me or an meeting with me or even a customer for that matter? How do I intentionally show value to that person? And so I think when I walked away from that, that's what impacted me the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So now so after you got impacted, then you started you facilitated a table with your team. Is that how that
Yeah.
next step worked?
Well, I facilitated it in several aspects. So actually we combined it. I ended up combining it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So up in our Cleveland market, so we have like 3 different customer groups that we call on. We call them channels. So we have A&D design firms, like design firms with architects and designers. That's one channel. And then flooring contractors is another channel, and then end users. So my account managers, I have a team of 3 in Cleveland. So I said I had each one of them invite 2 customers that they wanted to bring to this Change Your World table. So my account managers participated. I led it. I was the facilitator, and then they each invited 2 clients. So the way this works, I'm 2 hours away from Cleveland, right?
Mhm.
So the way we did all of these, and I did these in Louisville. So every market that I'm doing them in, they're remote. But what I did do is I drove there for the very first launch, and I brought lunch in, and we did the very first lesson face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we kicked it off. So that way we could get to know each other and be face to face. The next 3, we did them virtually.
Mhm.
And then the final one, or the next 4, and then the final one, I drove back down. And then we had the last lesson, and we had a graduation. So I had printed out a graduation certificate, and we got the gifts for the customers for participating. But I'll tell you, Genesis, the most amazing thing, a couple things. Number one, we were bringing professional and personal development to our clients, but
That's
also to
part of, I think, I don't know of anybody else that is bringing that professional and personal development to their clients.
that's right.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and honestly, I'm kind of using it as a competitive advantage right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm utilizing these type tables. We're getting ready to launch several more in the markets again, but we're going to invite a different group of customers. But I'm using it. It's a competitive advantage for me because I can tell you we received emails, letters, texts. The feedback that we got from our customers that participated in these roundtables was just priceless.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, we're offering a personal professional development like we just talked about. But I will tell you, some of these customers, some of them I had never even met yet. Now my team knew them because they're their clients, right? But being a leader and I'm remote, I had not met every single one of them. But what it did do, that we got to know these customers on a very intimate level.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship, we forged a very close relationship very quickly over those 6 weeks, because this is when you're doing these transformation tables, right? It's all about transparency,
Mm-hmm.
being candid. And when you start to become vulnerable, all the walls came down, and all of them, every single one of them started sharing personal stories, experiences, their learnings. And it's a relationship that we have forged with these customers that we would have never been able to before this. It's a different relationship.
Yeah, it's amazing because I think that's something that you hear people talk about all the time, where it's like, hey, if you want to be successful, you need to relationship build and all of that. But how many people actually know how to build relationships in a deep way like this? I mean, it's amazing when you can actually share authentically with each other, and where both sides are, they're known, they're seen, they're valued for who they are. It's a pretty, that sounds like, I can only imagine the impact that's had, and the like you said, the competitive advantage.
Well, it really is, because it took it from a conversation that you normally have with a client.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say it's superficial, but it's
probably transactional.
It's transactional. That's probably a great description for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we brought our clients and engaged in this kind of learning together over a 6 weeks period, and it was life-changing for many of them. I have story after story of some of the things that happened with these customers. And that relationship, that intimacy it's just different.
Yeah.
And one of the girls in that group, we had not done any business with this firm. And now we've been doing all kinds of business with her. And she just transferred to a university as a designer. And we could not get into that university. And now that she is transferred over, she's now bringing all the business to us. So it has been a difference maker at the relationship level that has increased our business. And so that's why I call it a competitive advantage, because I can assure you our competitors are now not out doing transformational tables, trying to help them be better wives, be better employees, right? Be better parents. I mean, there was tears and emotion in this room.
Mm. So,
and not only that, when you look at it from my team. So my team, they function and operate in a team. This going through this together allowed them to get closer. I mean, it really, they learned stuff about each other. I mean, they've been working together. They've been working together, let's see here, about 8 to 13 years between the tenure of the three.
Yeah.
And they learn stuff from each other that they've never known working with each other for all these years. So there was tons of a value in it, even from my own internal team's perspective, not to mention our clients.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
did the same thing in Louisville.
Oh, and you did the same thing in Louisville?
We did the same thing in Louisville. We're getting ready to launch one in Cincinnati and Columbus, because the feedback that we have gotten, Genesis, from our customers has been off the charts.
Mm. I love that. I love that. I think it's amazing what happens, because it sounds like to me that, yes, there were already clients, and you guys just wanted to do something to build relationship and add value to them.
Yeah.
And when you just can offer something with no strings attached and just say,
Right.
hey, we're doing this as a team, come join us in this process. And how beautiful is that? And I just love seeing that there's this other output on the other side that couldn't have even imagined.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I had a couple of them, several of them, they're like, they said, they were talking to me before they left, and they said, Trina, they said, I just want to thank you for bringing this to us. She goes, it's so crazy because you don't experience this type of learnings and this type of conversation in a corporate environment, and we need more of this. That's what several of them said. Because, I mean, Genesis, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to get better as a person, right?
I would hope everyone wants to get better. But
right, because the more we grow, like I said, the better we can be a better parent, a better sister, better employee, better teammate. Because I'm seeing that even between my three teammates right now.
Yeah. When there's something that's really powerful that happens when people are known and seen and heard on the other side, and our ability to be, I know empathy is a big word that we hear so much about, and people asking for that and saying, hey, I need people to be empathetic towards my situation and what I'm dealing with. And it's really difficult to be empathetic if we don't know them.
Right.
Outside of a transaction, right?
That's exactly right. And I think if you think about it, even when you look at the values that we learn in this setting, when there is a problem that arises in an organization, I mean, hopefully they've learned, in that value that they've learned, they're able to better problem solve. They're better able to collaborate. They're better able to diffuse the situation. Why? Because they're valuing the person that's sitting across from them, or they've learned better listening skills. And I encourage them, the lessons are so powerful. I encourage them all to go back and review them, right? Because the more you keep reviewing them, because we're all human, we all make mistakes. But I think the most important thing is just keep reviewing it, keep growing, keep learning, keep improving. And so that was my suggestion to them too, is just to go back and keep reviewing that.
Well, and I found for myself that every time I participate in a transformation table, whether I'm facilitating the table or I'm just a participant, that I'm not the same person I was the last time.
Right.
And there's always something. So even if I'm talking, we're talking about listening. I have my ebbs and flows like everyone else. And sometimes I'm like, man, I'm doing a really good job at listening. And then I'll have other days where I'm like, man, I forgot all of my listening skills. I need to get back.
Gotta remind ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And recognizing that there's not a finish line. There's not a finish line to our personal growth and development. And, when are we ever done improving our listening skills or improving how we value people, improving, all of that? I don't think we're ever done. We're not ever done. We get to continue the process. And I know that when we facilitate, which is one of the reasons why I love the fact that in the Change Your World values, the last value is multiplication, and that encouragement that what comes to you gets to flow through you, because we get to do it again. And who else needs to be a part of this? Who else
Exactly.
needs to experience this? And I love that you guys are continuing to take it to other areas. So I would be curious to know if any of your teams, you've got the 3 team members and the clients that they brought, if any of them are interested in facilitating their own table and continuing the multiplication.
Yes, it's funny. It's interesting you said that. We just talked about it because we just had a get together because we talked about one of the things that this group wants to do together is a community service project, which I thought was cool. This was the customer's idea. So they want to get this group back together and do a community service project.
Mm.
But we talked about doing another table here this fall. And we even thought about even them nominating one of their own people from their own companies to nominate for the next table. But I think what we'll do is Linda and I talked about it. She's one of the teammates on the table on the team. But we talked about having them facilitate it, or I might have Linda, Michelle, or Taylor. They're one of the 3 in Cleveland facilitate it. So
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because that's also ways that we are empowering others and helping to raise their leadership abilities
yeah,
and just giving them that opportunity. It's a safe environment. It's easy to do. So safe environment where they can try, they can
yeah,
test it out. And then it's not dependent on just one person, which is helpful.
it is helpful. I want to do more of them. I just want to do a table, keep them evolving.
Mhm.
And like I said, we're getting ready to launch them in several other cities because there's just so much value to them.
Yeah.
I absolutely love them.
Well, I am so glad that we reconnected again and that you shared your story with me. I just think it's so innovative, the way that you guys are sharing what has come to you and being able to share that with your client base. And I love how it's going out into the community and making a difference in the community. I mean, just to organically decide that they want to get together and do a service project is beautiful.
Yeah,
So
isn't that cool?
I love that. Um,
Yeah.
if you had one piece of advice, so think back before you had started or before you experienced the transformation table, and maybe there's another leader that's out there that's listening to this, and if you could give them one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
As far as it relates to the transformation tables, or
Yeah, maybe as in terms of transformation tables, but also just as a leader themselves. If they are looking to make a difference and think back to where you were, or maybe a piece of advice that you would want someone to give you.
yeah. Well, I think what comes to mind, because I just had we had a kind of event in Chicago last week where we brought in all of our young professionals and we kind of did words of wisdom as we parted. And one of the pieces of words, there was 3 pieces I gave, but one of them that I had given, and I'd love to give this to the leaders because I think this is important, is for you as a leader, know what values are the most important to you. What is the most important to you? Like, what are you for?
Mhm.
What do you stand for? What do you want to be? How do you want to represent yourself, right? To your company, to your community, to your customers. And don't ever waver. Don't waver. Don't compromise it, and stay true to yourself. And then one thing that I've learned, especially in the last 5 years, is to continue to learn, continue to be curious, and continue to grow. Because if I've learned anything, Genesis, over the last 4 or 5 years, that's what's made me a better leader. And it's also, I think, just improved my life professionally and personally.
Mm.
But from a leadership standpoint, that's my biggest advice. Just keep growing, keep learning, and just don't stop. So,
Thank you. That's a beautiful gift. I love
yeah.
how you said the 3 pieces of wisdom, and that is definitely wisdom. I think I believe it's a quote from John Maxwell where he talks about, he says, growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow will be better than today.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I just think it's one of those really cool things to think about, that it doesn't matter whether today was your best day or today was your worst day. If we keep growing, then tomorrow gets to be better than today.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I love it.
Thank you so much for your time today. I know that your story is going to help so many people, and we are just honored that you could be here with us today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing Trina's story as much as I did. I love the creative way that her team was serving their partners in the marketplace by inviting the people that they do business with to participate in a transformation table so that they can all grow and learn together. I was also inspired by her piece of advice to just keep growing. So now it's your turn. Because transformational leaders, we don't just see problems, we take action to do something about it. So let me ask you this question. What is one thing that you can do to grow yourself this week? Now, remember, action is great, but we're a lot more likely to take action when there's accountability. So let us know in the comments below when you take the action to grow yourself. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can stay inspired, equipped, and challenged to change the world around you.